Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me. I hope you're all well. I trust you're all well. So if you've not tuned in on a Tuesday, the fourth Tuesday of every month, you might not have met me. I'm not Jack Chu, obviously. My name is Tom Flanagan. I'm one of Jack's sort of teamers and helping him out with taking on some of the chewing over duties. So I think a good place to start today is acknowledging the differences today in sort of society, really, in comparison to the last time I was on. So I didn't think 2 years ago I'd ever have to say something like that. I didn't think that you'd see such drastic changes in society in a 4-week spell, but hey, here we are. Since I've been on last time, life is hugely different. Gyms have opened. We can play football with friends. We can go and play tennis, not just outdoors but indoors. We can socialise and have a pint in a pub garden. So things are massively different. It's bonkers, it really is. And so, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a physiotherapist, and I found some quite interesting changes in or challenges in the way that I provide care and the way that my colleagues provide care in the past few months or the past year. And I've seen a drastic change since things have opened up slightly, and I'm hoping that will continue up until the 21st of June and beyond. Touch wood, things go perfectly to plans, really. I don't think many predictions so far are overly accurate, so I'm still holding out hope. But the first thing, and where I'd like to start today, is to have a little bit of discussion as to how, or if you're a healthcare professional, you've found that the changes in society have impacted on your ability to provide care. So has lockdown, has COVID, not COVID in terms of restrictions, but more the societal implications, has that impacted on the way that you have provided care beyond the obvious, beyond the fact that we now have to wear face masks, and the way that the forums in which we provide care is different? An example for me is, as a physiotherapist, I'm super keen to set goal patients. I know that sounds bizarre. That should almost be kind of like, well, isn't that the norm? But it's difficult, so it's not the norm. Unfortunately, it's not very. It takes up a lot of time, and things are complex in primary care where I work. So goal setting is quite difficult, and therefore I don't always set goals like I'd like to. And I know colleagues have the same problem, but I do try my absolute utmost to do that, to provide good quality care and based around person-centered care, patient-centered goals. So I'm dead keen with it with patients, like cringeworthingly so. Really quite keen with it. Hey Joe, so I'm wondering, the way that this has impacted on me hugely is the fact that I've been having conversations for years with patients that go on the lines of, what do you want to be different about your life? If you didn't hurt, what would be different about your life? What would you do tomorrow if your knee didn't hurt or your back didn't hurt? And I've almost, say January, February time, I'd almost got to, certainly towards the end of February, I'd like lost us deflated with the conversation. I found it really quite difficult. But my enthusiasm has returned over the past 4 weeks, and I've seen an impact of that with my patients. So I'm wondering, please do engage in the chat if you have had similar experiences. Beyond the obvious, what sort of challenges have you had with patients with relating to COVID? Oh, stream dropped out for a second there. particularly, what challenges have you seen improve as things ease off? My big thing is the enthusiasm of both myself and patients when setting goals. I'm interested to hear if you have similar experiences, whether you're a patient or a healthcare professional listening in right now or even after the fact. Please do engage with us on Twitter. My handle is Practice Moving. So, is it a shared problem? Let me know. But that's not today's topic. Today's topic, I want to talk about great CPD. CPD there's loads of different ways of receiving it, going about it, and a lot more in comparison to when I first left university, pushed in 10 years ago now. So when I first left university, the culture was you either went from your undergrad, or if you did a pre-reg MSc, you went from doing that to going on to cool Joe, see you later. So you go on from your pre-reg MSc or your undergrad BSc to doing a full-blown physiotherapy MSc. Some people would do weekend courses, but that was about it, really. Having said that, around that time, we started to see the introduction of podcasts, and they've blown up a little bit, haven't they? They even got a weekly chat show sort of thing done via Facebook and LinkedIn and whatnot off the back of Jack setting up the Physio Mad podcast. But there's other podcasts as well, aren't there? And many great podcasts. So we had those introduced. We had a different type of weekend course, as far as I'm aware, a little bit more controlled by the course runner, which has its pros and cons. We had blogs and social media, of course, was huge. So I'm going to go through my views on that and what I see in the change and what I see great CPD as, and the foundations of that. Again, if you're listening in at the moment and you have some views to share, please do. If you're listening in after the fact, which I'm not, and if you will be, then please do. Tweet us, either the Physio Mad podcast or Practice Moving. You can chat on different streams, our Facebook, our LinkedIn. We're everywhere, really, YouTube, etc., etc. But I want to start off by offering my opinions on great CPD and where I found my greatest professional and really greatest professional developments have happened in the workplace. I've been really fortunate with my career, starting off in a private health company where I worked with Mark Reed, who you'll all know, and we had a great team. And there was a youthfulness of the team and a real emphasis on the importance of continuous or continuing professional development. And it gave me a really good foundation. And what made that great in that work environment was an open forum, probably driven by the fact that we were also, or the majority of the staff members were at such an infant stage in their development. There were so many ideas and so little kind of biases that have developed over the years. Therefore, it was an open forum was welcomed. And that was great because it meant those people who were super eager would go away and do a bit of extra reading and take it in. And I think that's probably how I'm so aware of different social media platforms and character social media. So again, I'm wondering if any of our listeners have something similar with that. I then went from this relatively inexperienced but very enthusiastic team to an NHS setting, which was very good. There was a lot more experience. There was lots to learn. But the forum in which it was done was more your traditional in-service training. Once a month, you'd sit down and you'd have someone who'd been doing the job a lot than you tell you loads about the job. And that's probably what I needed at the time, right? But I'd be lying if I said I enjoyed it. I'd be lying if I said that was great CPD today for me today. And I think that there's a theme when I've been reflecting on this over the past few days, that interactiveness, that lack of assumption that people know absolutes in our field is the foundation upon every great CPD I've come across so far. So I now work for Connect Health, and Ashley James has set up the Connect Academy along with some other really cool people. But it's awesome because it welcomes that as well. So that sort of reflects great CPD for me. Then the best form of CPD is in the So the best form of CPD and the culture that drives great CPD in the workplace, final bit on workplace from me, is if you have that open forum, if you have people willing to discuss and a lack of assumption that everyone knows it all, a bit of humility, then you seem to have really good chats in the workplace. Martin Coley, who I had on last month, talking about his well-being blog and social media information. You can find them on Instagram through the Wellness Bubble. Really, really cool stuff again. Martin and I have had some great conversations, other colleagues here too. And I hope that anywhere I work at has that, and I hope that I can contribute to a culture like that moving forward. As you get older, you realise you know less. And I think that's really important. So if you're listening in and you have great examples of that, even if you work with in any of those organisations I've alluded to, please do give us some examples of what great CPD is for you. So like I mentioned, for me, there's an underlying theme of a lack of assumption that you know it all, but it also does need to be backed up by expertise. And you do need to have some structure to it, which is where podcasts come in. Obviously, you'll know about our podcast, the Fish and Matters podcast, Jack's podcast, and that is the whole thought process of, and the reason why I think that genuinely is the best bit of podcast related CPD for me, is because it puts ideas on in the open and critiques them. We know what great care is, and we know what we're told great care is, but it's really important to have a culture where those things can be questioned. And it's great that podcasts give us the opportunity. And that goes beyond physiotherapy. There's other great healthcare podcasts. The Primary Care Network NHS podcast I've been listening to a bit recently. Of course, very much related, but there seems to be a culture in our medical colleagues and other non-medical colleagues, health professionals and nurses, and there seems to be a similar culture. I wonder if that's driven by social media, because I truly think that social media was a game changer in the way that we see CPD in physiotherapy. Blogs they often get really lambasted in many quarters, but I find blogs, and here's another thing that makes CPD great for me, I find blogs a little bit more fun than anything else, because it's a person sort of laying their ideas out there. So they have to do that with a little bit of humour, a little bit of humility. Otherwise, they set themselves up to be attacked from all directions. Of course, doesn't always stop that from happening. Certainly know of one or two health professionals, physiotherapists, who, even though they try to use a bit of humour, still do get a little bit of grief in social media. But I think that blogs are great, and they underline quite often the funness that's needed for great CPD. So far we've spoken about quite informal forms of CPD that I see great, and I think there's something to be said for the way I've presented those and my own perception of great PD, and not speaking about MSCs first or weekend courses first, but of course they're really important, as are articles. Articles are almost, so scientific literature published annual articles I'm talking about here. There's been a change in culture for articles as well over the past 10 years from what I've seen anyway. And we now have expert patients. It's a little bit less paternalistic. And like I said earlier, it's promoting ideas as opposed to having ideas forced down your throat, if you'll allow the metaphor. And so articles are, I go through phases in my planned professional development, and I'm going through one at the moment where I'm reading a lot of articles, and we'll come on to the reasons why in a moment. But I think that I was a bit off-put by them when I first came out of university, because there were they didn't have that culture of fun. They didn't have that culture of an open platform to discuss ideas. It was almost like we used to get frustrated in physiotherapy, and I don't hear of it so much anymore. Maybe I'm just protected from it, but people were frustrated by the suggestion that further research needed to be done, but the author, or quite often, almost come to quite a solid conclusion. And I don't think that was because further research wasn't needed. I just think there was maybe a little bit too, maybe not enough challenge from outside of the academic culture. So again, is that something that I've sort of developed in my mind or not? But the way that has impacted on me is I've almost become a little bit reluctant to read journal articles because, like I said, there's a culture of, well, this is the absolute answer, and that's not what I see as great CPD. It's a personal thing. It's not right or wrong. It's just my opinion. It's not what engages me, and that's really important. And I think that these days you see really cool articles by Mary O'Keefe and the O'Sullivans, JP Canero with the osteoarthritis in the Journal of Brazilian Physiotherapy. I have a really cool article recently. Yeah, a little bit of a plug from Ash James there with the Academy. I'm not sure if you were here from the start, Ash, but don't worry, mate. I've name dropped you there. Mainly because I've been doing so much of the content. But anyway. So yeah, like has that actually been a thing, or is it something in my mind? Has the culture of scientific literature, has that changed over the past decade? Because now, over the past few years, I've become more engaged in it. I'm very engaged in it at the moment, and I'm really enjoying it. And I don't know if that's just because I understand it better now, or is it because of what I alluded to a moment ago. I'm not sure. Again, really interested to hear your thoughts if you're listening in now, or again after the fact. I know that Ash will have some ideas here. So Ash James in the chat there tried to knock me off my vibes. Weekend courses. So weekend courses are really, really quite fun, but quite difficult to access, and COVID's changed that, hasn't it? So you've got your Ben Cormacs coming out with some really cool things at very affordable and reasonable prices. Michelle Angus with the CES talk last month for, I think it was a £5 to listen to that level of expertise in an evening. Meekins, I'm trying to think of different courses that might tweet me later again, irritated I didn't mention them, but I put myself on the spot now. I should have brainstormed before I came on. But these are really cool, and it's done virtually and at a reasonable price, more than reasonable. It's absolutely brilliant. And my favourite ever weekend course that I went on was Mike Stewart, the No Pain Mike course. So what's it called? Facilitating Pain Neuroscience Education. So I think that was the title. Don't chuck stuff at me if I got that wrong. I hope Mike doesn't listen in because I have. But it was really cool. And Mike, for those of you who know Mike and don't know the course, it's awesome. It was so cool and it was so fun, and it really lived everything that I feel great CPD. It was fun. It was engaging, and you tell that Mike has a career history as a teacher outside of physiotherapy, because he brought in lots of different teaching techniques. Again, I know that Ash Ginger's ears will be perking up here because we've spoken about that a lot. But for great weekend courses and great evening courses, there seems to be that theme of, even if it's short, it's an open forum, it's fun, it's discussing ideas, but with an underline of expertise. And these weekend courses, Greg James was another great one that I went on, and I was fortunate enough to have Ian Griffiths and Ian Griffiths, whilst I was at IPOPS, come in and do a foot course. He talks about how much he'll sort of overpronation as a term, again setting myself up for someone to shout at me on social media. But really cool. So here's some ideas. What do you think about them? What are the differences between your views and your views? Where do they come about? And also, let's laugh at each other so we don't all fall out over an idea, because that's it. Super cool. And then remain through them all. Currently, I'm on an MSc at Manchester Metropolitan University, and sort of running out of time a little bit to talk about that. But it is very different to a weekend course, and you'd expect that from an academic institution. But it's really interesting to see the differences and the challenge that have been put in place by COVID with more continuous learning. I think it's been more difficult for academic institutions to overcome that, as opposed to kind of a lone wolf setting up an online thing like Zoom. There's a lot more governance that will go into setting up a postgraduate course. So it's been super difficult, but a super interesting course, and nonetheless. But that, of course, brings me onto the next step in the journey of Jack and Jack's teams, particularly Jack Chew and Jack March and Felicity Thau and the gang, and their journey of providing great CPD. And I'm sure you're aware, over the past year, they've introduced they've been fortunate to have the opportunity to introduce a conference that has really resonated with me, and I've really valued, because it incorporates all of those things. It's expertise, it's fun. There's an emphasis on conversation and exploring ideas, putting ideas out in the open, and let's have a really cool opportunity to discuss these as professionals. So that was done last year, and some absolutely amazing talks. And I'm fortunate enough to pay to get access to them on repeat. And consistently do. Whenever I do some teaching of my own, I'll reflect back on them. Had Derek Griffiths do a talk on graded exposure, which I've listened to more than I'd be happy to admit to. I don't know if you're, again, listening in, or listening after the fact, if you have a particular talk at one of the Therapy Live conferences that stood out for you. But Derek's was I think it was at the main conference last June. He had Ben Cormack do a great talk. There was some public health talks at the event as well, exploring rehabilitation. Really quite cool stuff. So they all welcomed that open platform, and that's been continued throughout subsequent events. So I think we're about to do our fourth Therapy Live. Jack will send me a message hurriedly if I'm getting that wrong. But in the previous three, again, talks like the one by Jo Turner with the Ehab platform that she's developed. If you're not aware of it, haven't listened to that talk, go back and listen to it. If you're a therapist and you want to live or be able to work in this profession until retirement, you're going to need someone like Jo giving you a bit of guidance so you don't burn out. So I've listened to that. I was fortunate enough to be there. It was really, really cool. But there was this expertise. Here's what I think, but it's not. This isn't gospel. Yeah, it's open to discussion. So they're the things that were a consistent theme from previous Therapy Lives. And on the 11th of June, like I said, I think it's the 4th. I'm pretty sure it's the 4th. And we've got some absolutely awesome talkers. Again, Derek Griffin is back. Meekins is back. We've got Adam Dobson, who is one of the smartest people I've spoken to, and not just really smart, but has also put the money where his mouth is, and he's provided stuff to patients that has massive benefits. There's a fellow called Ashley James, up and coming guy. Ash runs the Connect Academy mentioned earlier. He's head of clinical education at Connect Health, who are a huge MSK and the provider. And he's going to be talking about how people learn, and that has massive impact on what we're talking about today, and also with patients. So it's Brad Neal. I'll give Brad a bit of a shout out today, but there's loads. There's absolutely loads of people. Some really cool talk because I can't mention them all because I've run over time. But on the 11th, sign up and get your tickets because we've got something really cool. Everything that we've learned from previous events with the IT hiccups that we've had to just like myself. Who've kind of been getting to grips with how to make it best for you as a listener. I feel like personally much more experienced, and I'm really excited about being involved with helping you guys and delivering something really cool. And the theme, the culture around what we do is going to be that's going to be for the expertise, but it's going to be done in a manner where not only can we, but you can also critique what's being said. You can challenge things that maybe don't align to what you see in clinical practice. So it's absolutely awesome, and I don't really have to sell it. Certainly not if you've been there before. And the final thing that I say is, if you've not been there before, why not? You're missing out. But that's me for today. So, like I said, I'm available significantly less on social media these days due to mainly mindless. But if you do have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to try and answer them on social media. Finally, I just want to say thank you for listening. And I'll be here at the end of May, where things are even more normal, hopefully, and we're allowed inside to have a pint of Guinness. So what a way to leave it. Have a great month. I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys soon. Cheers.